So today I wanted to talk to you about building in public, which is something that I have been experiencing since since the end of last year, which has been working really brilliantly. By the way, this is one of the reasons how actually I also met Garrett on LinkedIn and Sam, and also I also want to talk about narratives and how they are important to gain some traction, not just in user numbers or your revenue, but also in attracting investment and capital. Today, I'm not going to share any slides or anything. I want to keep this as conversations as possible. So if you have any questions or if you have any comments, please just raise your hand. I will definitely give the mic to you. Or if you want, you can leave your questions to the message board. So before starting PitchSpace, I worked with startups for about 6.5 years. And when I first moved to London, I only had £2,000 in my pocket. I had given £1,000 of it to my consultant to get my visa, and I only had £1,000 left in my pocket. I didn't have any connections. I hadn't done any business. I didn't have any friends, but I had to start from somewhere. I was so lucky to have a partner so he could support me, and I had to start from somewhere. So I started networking. I met people. I got my first client, who is a shareholder in PitchSpace today, also a friend of mine, John Auckland. He was just starting his crowdfunding marketing agency, and he needed a branding for the company. That was my first project. And one day he sent me a message that reads, I have the first campaign ready. They have an investment deck. It looks horrible. There is no way I can send it to investors. Can you help me with the design of this deck? And I said, yeah, of course, definitely. But because it was my first 4 months, I wasn't familiar with the term pitch deck. And it was a presentation to me coming from Turkey. And so, full disclosure, I had to Google what is a pitch deck. And then I realized that it is actually a presentation. And then I designed the deck. I sent it to John. The campaign was successful. He sent another one and another one and another one. And then developing pitch materials became my full-time job. And after 6 years, I worked with more than 100 startups with a success rate in fundraising of 98%. Then it got to a point during COVID that I couldn't scale my services anymore because I didn't have enough capacity. And each time I worked with a founder, I had to educate them from scratch, regardless of their experience. And extracting the story and the information from the founding team was the most difficult part of the process, not the design. Design was the easiest part. So I tried to find a solution to solve that problem. I couldn't find one. And one day I told John, why don't we create our own product? Then I turned my entire experience of 6 years into an algorithm, designed the algorithm for the first time. It has been one of the most enjoyable things that I have ever done, by the way. It's the decision tree that I built, and we turned that into a product, launched it in beta in the summer of 2021. And just yesterday, we passed 2,000 user milestone completely organically. So how did that happen? Last year, I was exploring the market and where PitchSpace is going to go from being just a pitch builder, because Pitch Builder has always been a strategic product for us that we positioned at the top of the funnel. And that helped us to engage with the market, with the part of the segment of the market that we want to engage with and understand better. So I spent last year by navigating the market, exploring solutions. The first thing that I came up with was kind of a reaction to the organic growth that we got from our existing users. And the word of mouth was, if we have this many number of deals every month coming into the product, why don't we start matching them with investors? So then I tested the idea with my network of founders, operators, investors. And the reaction to that idea was actually quite negative, because there are already some marketplaces, matchmakers in the market. Many of them are not actually performing at all. So I had to find another solution. Then I was introduced into the Web3 world where cooperation and collaboration are quite valued and people build stuff together, which was quite powerful. Although Web3 couldn't deliver what it promised yet, and there are some problems, the philosophy behind the idea was actually quite good. And that introduced me to the concept of building public. So building public is actually a place that you become a very vulnerable founder and speak candidly about your journey. And I started using that concept at the end of last year. And it worked brilliantly. So how I do that and what's building public? So building public is candidly sharing your journey, ups and downs, goods or bads with your network. The first step into building in public is to know where that audience is, who you want to build together with, and who your public is. In my case, it is LinkedIn. Then I started to share my journey on LinkedIn. I'm not posting every day. I'm trying to post every day, but I'm not posting every day. But when you look at my posts, it's all about my journey, what's happening at PitSpace, what milestones we have hit, what plans we have got, and how we are trying to achieve that. And that helped me actually to meet lots of founders and even become friends with them. It also helped me to attract investors. Since I started to build in public, I started to receive messages, inbound interest from VCs, later stage VCs from like seed and Series A plus. And they say, we have been following your journey for quite a while, and we are really excited about where you are getting to with this idea. And that's all because of the narrative that I have been building around PitSpace and around myself. How I built that narrative. When you build a narrative, I didn't know that, by the way, when I first started, that I only started to study it when I came up with the idea for the next phase of the product. So when you build a narrative and tell a story to your audience, it can be on your social media, it can be your investors, it can be your users, it doesn't matter, because the same rule applies to all of them, and your pitch text, by the way. So it's all about telling the story. So when you build a narrative, you start by setting the scene. So you talk about where you operate, where you live as a founder, as in what's the environment like. So let's look at for instance, Pixar narrative framework. All their stories, all the tales starts with once upon a time, there was a village where people lived happily, etc., etc. That sets the scene. And this is how you start building your narrative in your pitch, on your social media, or while building in public. That helps people to know where you stand or where your product stands. That helps them to position you. Now they understand how to position you. So that means it is going to be easier for them to understand the value proposition, because there is going to be a reference point. And those reference points are going to be the products or people who are building or operating within that environment, in that scene. And then you need to introduce the heroes of this story. In our case, it's the team, starting with the founder. Introducing founder as a hero and putting the founder, especially at the early stages, pre-seed, seed, until Series A, even further beyond Series A today, because today the relationship between businesses and brands and the audiences are changing a lot. Business is more personal now, and it is actually a great opportunity for all of us. And this is something that I'm also using for PitSpace as well, and for myself. So you build the entire narrative around the founder, his or her vision, and the story. So our hero is going to be the founding team led by founders. To make that story interesting and for people to follow and make it exciting, you need enemies. You need challengers. So you need to introduce the enemy and the negative thing to the story. I'm not saying they are literally enemies, but there are problems. So you start talking about those enemies. You don't need to name any products or any startup or any big company. You just talk about the problem. And if that problem has affected you, it is even better. I'm not saying usually you need to exploit you, but this is also how politics works. And this is why people vote for this for emotional reasons rather than facts. That is why it is very difficult to convince voters based on the facts on the or the numbers. Easier to get them vote for the emotional connection. It never changes. It's the human psychology, and it never changes in our case. So you talk about how that enemy, let's say the problem, affected you, affect people that you know or you care about. There are some effects this creates. On the investor side, it makes you credible because investors see you have experienced the problem, you are close to the problem, you understand what the problem is, what the solutions are for that type of problem, and why the world actually needs a product like yours. This is quite important. This is where you start talking about why and why now. Investors really like that, and because they need to understand the context and whether it is a timely investment or not. And for users, they may not care about why it is the right time for that, but within the narrative, they are going to take something different from that, because then they feel they are part of the solution. So we introduced the enemy. And let me give you an example from Space. During this journey, I used Pitch Builder as an opportunity to understand the market better. One of the mistakes maybe that I have made was to delay the monetization of the product. And there were some technical reasons behind that. There were some confidence, emotional reasons behind that, because, and I have always been honest about all my journey on LinkedIn to everyone. As a solo founder and as a first-time founder, I had lots of fears that held me back. I have been so lucky enough to have an amazing product, I have to say. And I am proud of the product that we have built, which created this organic growth. And it's just really loved by the people who use it. But it allowed me to build close relationships with the founder community and the users. And I spoke to a lot of people. I use LinkedIn actively. And whenever I speak to someone, they all talk about how LinkedIn is full of white noise and how they want to build better relationships, more meaningful relationships, but it is difficult. They don't feel confident. They want to build in public and share more of their journey, but they don't have the confidence to share everything about their journey because they don't know how the algorithms actually treat their journey or whether their journey is going to serve to the right type of people or not. And you have no ways to control it, neither on LinkedIn nor on Twitter. And I became also obsessed with the fact that many things that are created for startups, especially founders, are so boring as a product. The UX, so boring. The UI, incredibly boring. It is as if they sat down in a cubicle, designed it in Microsoft, what was it, Paint, I can't remember, and then pushed it out. I have a product. I have a design background, and when I see that type of product, I just get so frustrated. And it is very obvious that, for instance, that product was developed or the idea was actually planted in by, let's say, ex-VC, ex-lawyer, ex-financial professional, that because you can see that inherent understanding in the UX or the offering of the product. So I realized, I also shared this on my LinkedIn today. we have lots of tools that are solving the process problem, but we don't have enough tools that is solving or touching upon the biggest problem, which is the human side of the equation. And the thing that helped me to understand this problem and draw the vision for the for PitSpace was the fact that I was building in public, and I was building narratives around myself and my own journey, and also the journey of people that I serve, founders and investors. And this became one of the enemies that I introduced to my narrative that I use in my communications. The dullness of the let's say the tool set that we have in the ecosystem, and the inherent bias and clunkiness of the system and the language, which we talked about on Monday in the, at Dan's event. So these things have become the enemies that I introduced into my story, which all of the people that I talked to agreed. And there's another angle to my story, to the narrative. I've seen that at PitSpace, our audience is getting younger and younger every day. And many of our users are now between 18 and 34. And when I talk to them, I see they struggle to understand what is being said, what the language is about, how actually the product works when they want to raise investment, or if they want to build their business. They can't find those brands or products speaking their language, and it is a problem because they're the leaders of the future. So, and we need to build systems to serve them, to enable them, to empower them. That has also become part of my narrative. So as a next step, when you build the narrative, now you have the enemy, so you need to introduce who is the victim. And so when you introduce the victim, that starts resonating with a wider audience, because this is where you start finding the audience and recognizing the persona that you are speaking to. That is also going to help you identify the behavioral patterns amongst the audience that you are targeting. And in my case, again, to give you an example, the victims are the founders in general, the underrepresented founders, female founders, Black founders, LGBTQ plus community members, disabled founders. These founders are all of the founder community, actually, except maybe the poster boys, are the victims of these problems. And that resonated with people. And it helped me to attract the right type of people to join my community and gather around the idea of PitSpace. And as for instance, this is how I met Garrett. We met on LinkedIn. He was engaging with my posts, and I messaged him, and I realized that he was also involved with Blog Dojo, and then we had a chat, and then I told my story. It wasn't a pitch call at all. It was just an introductory call. And then I mentioned that, we are about to raise, and then Garrett said, "Oh, okay, I'm an angel investor." And then this decision was made. It was very quick, and it was funny because I have a pitch builder product, and I hadn't sent Garrett an investment deck. And before that, Garrett asked, "Hang on, I don't have your investment deck. Can you just send it to me? Just, I keep it in the records." That was funny, but so I didn't need that. The reason why I didn't need that, and I only needed that as a kind of a documentation or like a token of that relationship, just at the end of that journey, is because I have been sharing my journey openly, candidly on LinkedIn. And everything I share is authentic. That is the most important thing that you need to remember. Authenticity is quite important. I know when I'm aware of the fact that algorithms don't like it, unfortunately. LinkedIn algorithm don't like it. I'm sorry for excuse me for my French, but it is called shitposting on LinkedIn. That is what gets the likes, comments, reach, and all that kind of stuff. That is why we see lots of people saying the same thing, repeating the same thing in different words, trying to hack the algorithm, and it works because this is how LinkedIn is going to make money and expand the network. Because the more interaction and engagement, the more revenue they are going to gain. But it doesn't mean that you actually build meaningful relationships and an audience. So don't get obsessed with the number of followers. I don't even check my following number. I only check it like probably every 2 weeks, whether it has increased or not. It is increasing, but what I am looking and measuring is actually the level of engagement. Am I getting the right level of engagement from the right type of people? And is it consistent? And can I have a conversation with every single person that engage with my content? That is the metric that I'm measuring. And yes, I am. And since I started to build in public and started to share our journey and where we are going to, people started to become a part of it. And they candidly message me and say, if you need any help, let me know. Do you need feedback? Do you need introductions? Just let me know. I love your passion. I love your excitement. I share it with you. I want to use the product when it is ready. And just let me know if you need anything. And I became friends with my users. I became friends with the people that I met on LinkedIn. With some of them, I haven't met in person, but I have regular calls. And just, share some struggles. I met a co-founder of a startup which has a VC funding in place. 2 weeks ago, I sent him a message because it was a kind of a rough day. I sent him a message and said, I need therapy. I didn't say anything else. He called me back. We had a chat for 30 minutes and we shared, what's happening. And then, he gave me some advice, etc. And all that burden was gone. I was back on track. That was only possible because I actually built that relationship and I shared my journey, and everything is authentic and genuine. And I could actually replicate that type of relationship as well. And the narrative is also going to help you build those relationships, which is the most important thing. And as a next step, okay, you set the scene, you've got heroes, you've got the enemy, you've got the victim. How are you going to fight this enemy? And there you introduce your vision. This is how we are going to beat the enemy. And this is my solution. In the business scenario, it means your product or service. The key thing is, don't try to sell, because many people told me that I'm good at sales. I feel like I suck at sales because I don't sell to sell. I just share my journey. People buy from me. That's how it has always happened. Whenever I tried to really sell, I couldn't, because I wasn't comfortable with that. And it was so obvious, within that conversation that I was trying to sell and I wasn't confident. So I never pursued that road. I always just shared my journey. And if I want to actually sell, if I want to target someone who could buy from me, the thing that I always do is I would like to share my journey. And I would like to share our vision with you and get your feedback. And that is genuine. That is what I really need. And those things turn into either sales conversations or investment conversations as well. Thank you all. Have a good day. So you introduce your product. The great thing about building public, I know people are hesitant. The thing is, you don't have to share everything about your product or business or your plans. People are hesitant about building public. Some people are hesitant because they feel like their IP is going to be just stolen, or someone else is going to build the same thing. There are ways to actually overcome that problem. And you don't have to share everything with them, because you don't need to. What you need to do is to share the value proposition and what life could look like if that product was available in the market today, or if it is already available, what the life looks like. So in our story, it is that, okay, we beat the enemy. After we beat the enemy, what is the life going to look like? I don't know if you have noticed, but whenever you watch a movie, the lighting and the brightness of the colors always change throughout the movie. When you see the enemy and the fight, it's always darker, the colors are dull. Whenever you beat the enemy and there is, say, tomorrow and the future has come, you see the sky is, the blue of the sky is brighter, everything is brighter, the sounds are definitely brighter, everything gets brighter. It is to communicate that has changed and everything is positive now. They show you what life looks like when you beat the enemy. So you also need to show your audience how how their life is going to change, or how they are going to feel if they used the product. The reason behind that is because we are all making decisions. All of our decisions are emotional. I don't know whether you have read Daniel Kahneman's Think Fast and Slow. That's one of my favorite books ever. And I've read it twice, and I'm close to reading it like for the third time. And in that book, he divides the brain into two sections, let's say decision-making process, into two sections. And then 85% of those decisions are being made by the part of the brain that manages your emotions and feelings and memories. 15% of your brain manages the relational decisions, but the input that leads you to make that decision enters the brain from the emotional side. And if the emotional side doesn't like that message, it doesn't allow the relational side to say it. So you have to pass through that emotional side. And this is how and narratives are the ways to achieve that. Not just while building the product, but after you build the product.